I believe we have people in the waiting room. So
We
thank you
just
everybody for joining today. I believe we just started the webinar here. We're just starting it a bit early. People are starting to trickle in here. So we're going to get started right at 2 o'clock. So we still have a few minutes here. While you're waiting, there's a poll that popped up on the screen. If you just want to kind of give it a once over and maybe provide some of your thoughts and insights or any experiences that you've come across and just answer those questions. And also a few housekeeping items. There is a chat for this webinar and it is monitored by our team. We're also going to keep an eye on it. So if you ever have any questions or thoughts or insights or even a value add that you think we should share with the group, please throw it in that chat. And it just becomes this great spot to really continue to build on the conversation. All right. We will give it 2 more minutes here.
I always start my webinars a minute or two late,
Yes, for sure.
but you are the boss here.
Yeah, in this day and age of online meetings, it's like something's always running a minute over and you got a hop meeting to meeting. So yeah, I agree. I always wait a few minutes there, give people time.
Oh, see a few clients there. That's good to see.
Excellent.
We just put out a podcast this morning with one of your LMN clients, with Scott Frampton from Landscape Renovations, where we compared bid build and design build.
Oh, wow.
I've known Scott, we're going from years to decades or a decade. And even I learned things about him and his business that were new to me. It was great.
That's awesome. There's so much creativity and insight happening, and it's happening, I'm finding, faster than ever. And I never not have a customer connect these days where I don't learn something. It's just incredible time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is a positive or I don't know what it says about me, but I learned something about his original vision 20 years ago or 25 years ago that has driven him ever since. And when he connected the dots for me, it was amazing to hear some of the huge benefits and gains he made because of that original vision.
That's awesome. And how would people find your podcast? What's the best way to look for that?
It's called the Ultimate Landscape CEO. And so if you go to Apple or whatever, wherever you consume your podcasts, I mean, it's also on my website. So I have
Awesome.
a podcast tab, but I listen on Apple, others listen on, I don't know. Katie, how do you listen to your podcasts?
I'm probably more of an Apple person mostly, so I'm
Yeah.
with you. I don't go many other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like podcast has replaced the radio for me. I just always seem to have something on when I'm driving, and it's just the drive seems shorter.
Yeah. I like to race cars, so I listen to podcasts about that. And a great business podcast is called, I'm going to pull up the exact name for you in a second here. One of my favorite business, it's called Founders. And there it is right there. Oops, can you see it?
Yeah.
And the most recent one was about F1, back to racing, and how F1 got founded. So it was pretty interesting.
Oh, that's really cool. What's your favorite car to race right now?
Personally, I race a Porsche GT4.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's a blast. But I will be downsizing to something cheaper because I'm going to get a fully caged race car that I'll probably crash. And so I need something that's crashable where I don't feel bad after I've crashed it.
Yeah, for sure. I was watching this Netflix series where people build sleeper cars essentially and they race supercars, and it's incredible what people are doing these days to, like, you'll see this homemade basically hot rod against a McLaren, and it's just incredible stuff to watch.
Mm, okay.
All right, it's 2:03 here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So, I always like to start webinars I'm involved in with really a moment of gratitude. So, I like to thank all of you for making the time to join us today. I know your time's extremely valuable to you, and this is really a testament to your commitment to growth and learning new ideas. So, a huge thank you to all our attendees for joining us today. And then a huge thank you to Katie and Jeffrey for your time today. The industry knowledge you're going to be sharing today is just extremely, extremely valuable. So, just a huge thank you for your time today as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So, I'll turn it over to Jeffrey and Katie to really introduce yourselves to everybody here today.
My name is Jeffrey Scott from Jeffrey Scott Consulting. We have a team of 7 people, and we are focused 100% on the green industry. We've worked with 350 landscape companies over the years, and we help companies to fix their businesses where the owner is underpaid or just working like a dog, or scale their business where they've hit a ceiling and they need help to get past that plateau, or to exit the business, which could be selling, but it could also mean retiring in place and really pulling back and letting others run the business. And so we're focused on maximizing profitability, dramatically helping owners grow the value of the business and build a team that gets, as employees, as much value as the owner does. And so that's myself. And I actually suggested that Katie Magoon speak here today as well. Katie has worked with many, many of our clients and provides an excellent service and has really gotten to know the green industry. Katie?
Great. Thank you, Jeffrey. And thank you, Jeffrey and Matt, for inviting me to join the conversation today. I've owned People Solutions Center. We started, we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary, actually, at the beginning of the year. Really excited about all of that. And at least 6 or 7 years ago, we actually started working in this green industry and now have green industry clients across the country that we support from an HR perspective. And that can be everything from we are their HR department, so they don't need to have somebody on staff full time, or they have someone on staff, but we're there to support that person and help give sort of that strategic level advice, and also big employee relations advice when those issues come up. It also is in the recruiting space, and so we will help our landscape clients hire everything from account managers to sales design folks to their general managers and their controllers. And then also we do have a leadership development program that we do in the off season that helps provide, teach folks the coaching and leadership skills that they need, particularly from that people development side of things. And so we've loved working with our landscape and folks over the last several years and continue to grow.
That's awesome. And I really think there's a big need for your services in the landscaping industry. It's HR is always one of those areas where how do you get started? And it's great to have experts like yourself to help with that path. So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Then myself, I'm from Greenius. I was one of the co-founders at Greenius. Jay Murray, Dave Leff, and myself started it. I remember being at the TLC shop and just brainstorming what a training program could look like. And then we brought on Arden Urbano. And from there, we built Greenius. We've been at it 18 years. And really what we've seen is where we really help contractors is with the people side of things. How can you really develop the people you need to be successful and efficient and scale your business and reduce those recurring problems and mistakes. And really, we built a training program and an employee development program to really help streamline that process by landscapers for landscapers. So we'll get a bit more into that later. So let's dive in. Jeffrey, if you want to kick us off here.
Thank you very much. So I think the way today's going to go is I'm going to sort of do the beginning parts, and then Katie's going to talk in the middle with some of me, and then Matt's going to talk at the end. And really, it's about tackling this whole turnover issue. And I want to start with some big picture items first. So you're going to get a mini NBA in business here with these couple slides. Abraham Maslow was an American psychologist, and he developed this things called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He did it in 1943. And really, everything we do now to attract employees and nurture them and create a great working environment, you could say is summarized in these hierarchy of needs. So let me explain to you really quickly what we have here. We have physiological needs at the bottom, and that says that until you solve that, you can't really focus on the higher level needs. Think caveman, or somebody starving, really, right? So if they don't have heat, shelter and food, they're not thinking about anything else. And so that's the base need. And then you have safety needs a little bit higher up. Do I feel safe in my environment? Can I go outside? Is my life feeling safe? So physically, but also the way life and work is. Does it feel like a consistent, safe environment where I don't feel like I'm in a flight or fight response mechanism? And then, so the third level is the belonging uh, or love. Do I feel like I'm part of something, a family, a team, a community? Do I feel that love and embrace? And so we we often think of that as the most important thing, but that's because your physiological needs are taken care of and you feel safe. And so then comes the belonging. And after that comes the esteem. Are you working on yourself where you feel proud and confident? Uh, Generally, it's in an activity you're doing in life, right? Work, family, community, etc. And then the top level, the self-actualization, that's where human beings can really work on themselves because they've covered all these lower level needs. And so that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what I'm going to do is apply this to your landscape business. Next slide. And we're going to jump right in here. And so physiological really is about pay, right? Do I earn enough money to pay for food? Now, sometimes you don't, right? And that's a whole separate issue. But really, do we have do I have a where I have pay, where I'm covering my base needs? And then at work, the next level, safety, is it literally a safe working environment? Do I get enough hours, and are they consistent hours? Is the culture consistent? Is the owner consistent versus flying off the handle? Is the work environment fairly consistent? And so then I feel safe at where I'm working. The third level is about belonging. So that's really teamwork. Do I feel part of the team? Not just me at the company or me and the boss, but do I feel enveloped by the culture that's been created, a positive culture where I'm quote unquote feeling the love. And so that's halfway up the hierarchy needs. Matt, you can go to the next slide here.
Yeah, I
And
just
then
had a
oh yeah,
quick
go ahead.
question before we skip on from this one. This has been coming up a lot in my social feeds lately in a lot of landscape communities. And I see a lot of companies starting right at the culture level. They're diving in, hey, we got to fix our culture. We got a culture problem.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, their employees are struggling with their bills, paying for their food. And now they're hosting a culture meeting with employees that are struggling to pay rent, and they're failing at it. So how do you start at the beginning. You got to make sure you're at equal pay. And then once you got that box checked, you move on to your safety, and then you're ready for that culture conversation.
Well, it's not quite linear like that, but let's just say you have turnover, right? People are leaving if what you're describing is the case. And so we call that you got a hole in your bucket, right? You're losing people. Don't bother over recruiting until we fix the hole in the bucket. And so different types of surveys with your employee, and sometimes there's going to be trends that are going to be similar, and sometimes it's like different employees have different issues. But surveying the issues people have, and then going about fixing those issues. And, you know, culture is a soft word, meaning it has a lot of meaning to it. But if you can fix the holes in your bucket, you're going to improve the culture. And so it may be pay, and it may well be something else, inconsistent hours. I mean, I could go on, but it could be many things that have to do with perks or benefits or the culture or the pay or the boss, that you do want to fix in order to have a stronger culture. Katie, you want to add to that?
I do. And I think you're absolutely right. Like all of this is layers on top of one another and has to be in the right place. I do think, Matt, it's important to note a lot of times when employers come to the table with, I want to hire somebody, and I only like, I want to hire them and I want to pay them this is driven by, because that's what I have in the budget, which makes sense. We have to think that way from a business perspective. And also, though, we have to recognize that you don't always like the market is still tight. There's still dollars to be put on the table where people will go other places. And so to say, I want this and I want this person that has all of this talent and they have to be able to do all of these things, but I'm only willing to pay this. Well, you're competing in the market. And if other people are paying more, you ultimately lose out. And while culture can close that gap sometimes, right? I might take a little less pay because of the great culture. I still have to at least satisfy this base need of, can I pay my rent? Can I have food on my table? And so I do think employers sometimes need to flip their mindset of, I'm going to make this higher, and this is what the market is charging for that if I want this level of talent. And you have to figure out how to make that kind of work in the budget, because the market we're still at a point where the market is driving your compensation and your salary ranges.
That's awesome. I really like that. I really like the insight of like, hey, use surveys to find the holes in your bucket and then go fix those problems. And you can't manage what you don't know, right? So those surveys will give you that indication. So no,
Let,
thank you for
let me
sharing.
let me even just suggest, everybody knows about NPS score, Net Promoter Score, where you're surveying your clients to see how likely they are to refer you. You can do an ENPS, which is how likely are you to refer one of your friends to come work at our company. And doing the surveys is sort of quantitative, but you can get the qualitative, what can we do to improve it? And then you know what to fix. But if you don't go fix it, the survey backfires. So don't do this if you're not willing to jump on the feedback, fix the company, and then do another survey in 6 months and keep up with the process. All of this is a process. You can't dabble. It'll backfire.
And it's obviously a shameless plug, but I believed in the power of the EMPS survey, and we just launched that tool in Greenius probably a month ago. And now we're starting to see the results of that. So I agree
Yeah.
with you there. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the key tools.
So the next slide here is about this whole training and development of employees, right? So esteem needs, that's the achievement and acknowledgement. Esteem is me being recognized for the good work I'm doing, maybe getting raises myself, maybe winning awards in the company ceremonies, maybe somebody doing a shout out to me saying thanks, acknowledging me. That helps the self-esteem. And that takes the company investing in the employee to get there. And so that's where we start getting into the development issue. And then self-actualization, the highest level there, reaching my full potential could mean where my boss really sees the potential in me and how high I can go, and the different levels of responsibility and promotions I can make. Again, I'm just answering or framing all this within the inside of a company format. Obviously, reaching your full potential can mean what you do out of work. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to it. So just within the company, you can, an enlightened supervisor and owner can really help an employee reach their full potential, which a lot of it has to do with training and development. So that's your MBA. There's a lot going on here. You got to get the bottom parts fixed in order to do the top parts, but you're not really going to go linearly on everything. You just have to keep that in mind as you go about implementing these tactics here. And with that in mind, the next slide, I'm going to talk about a way where I summed all this up in a book I wrote. And Jay Murray, the founder of Greenius, wrote the foreword for this book, Matt.
Wow.
Him and Frank Mariani, they each wrote a foreword. I didn't realize you were an original founder. I know every other name you mentioned there, but
Yeah, Jay called me up, and I remember sitting in the TLC office. I brought coffee, and he said, "Hey, I need a training program." And I remember that conversation to this day. Yeah, and from there we kicked off Greenius.
that's awesome. So becoming a destination company where employees or future employees are attracted to you, and you are the company where they want to plant and grow their career. Uh, it's really about building a great company. And so this book is a roadmap, and I'm going to show you how to get it for free. But this book is a roadmap on what it takes, and it's really about building a great company. Number one starts with a compelling vision. The owner has to have a compelling vision that they put actively and proactively out and feed their employees with, right? It's like blowing up a balloon where there's like a couple of holes in the balloon. The owner's constantly blowing up that balloon for everyone to see constantly. And then creating a culture of excellence where you don't put up with shoddy work, but you raise everyone to a higher standard. Uh, we want that. Better people want that. And in the book, we talk about specifically how to do that. And then number three, treating recruiting like marketing. I think we all think those ways now. I mean, I wrote this book before social media was a big hit. And it's that chapter is as true now as it ever was. But we talked specifically ways to go about doing that. Number four, building a values-based company where you only hire employees that fit within your values and you fire them if they don't. And promotions are in part based on values alignment. So we really lay that out for you. Pillar five is all about the people systems and career paths and creating a path to success. People systems are really as important as or more important than the technical systems. You could have great systems for digging holes, planting trees. If you don't have the people systems, your company will keep sort of growing and shrinking, growing and shrinking, growing and shrinking. And that's a big headache. So people systems are important. Shared leadership, where people feel like they have a voice, right? That's where they really feel like they can self-actualize. And then the ownership culture where the wins are well defined and you're off to the races. So this really lays out, and I'll show you how to get the book. And really today we're going to dive deeper into different parts of this, but certainly also chapter 5.
I love number 3, treating recruiting like marketing. And you are way ahead of your time here. That is now more important than ever. And I've been talking with contractors and just saying, like, they know what they have to do to build their lead funnels for sales. So they know their best sources of leads. They know how many leads they need in their funnel. They know what steps to close them and then follow up and onboard them. And I was like, hey, take all that knowledge and now switch it to recruiting and use the same strategies, same mindset, same efforts. And in this day and age, that's how people are starting to get more applicants, is by using that mindset. So I think that's extremely valuable.
The longer phrase there is treat recruiting like marketing, sales, and business development.
Yeah.
And which is your same point. The companies are great at marketing, sales, and business development. Take all those skills and treat recruiting like that, including social media. Sorry, go
I
ahead,
was going
Katie.
to say, yeah, that's even more true today, Matt, because the job boards have now implemented. It used to be, right, there were days when you posted a job and you paid to just have it up and it was there no matter what, and it would show if people searched. And now it's very much search engine optimization driven. And so even the difference in the job titles you use, how you frame, like how you write the ad, all of that makes a huge difference on even the response rates that you will get. And so your ad writing alone is completely different than it was even 5 years ago.
100%. I don't have the slide in this deck, but I took two job ads and one versus the other. And the one was the traditional, it was like for snow shovelers. And it was like temporary worker, gotta work nights, you're on call, you weather dependent. And it was like, wow, who's applying for that? But then the other one was like, hey, come join our company. We got a career path to get you onto a maintenance crew, to crew leader. We have all this employee development programs. We offer competitive wages. Same job, framed totally differently, and they get way more applicants, right? So it's become more important than ever.
Excellent. So we're going to cover some blind spots, all of us here. I'm just going to talk about so again, this is about turnover and why companies have turnover and aren't fixing it. And the most important is lack of vision by the owner. And so a vision is, I always like to use the Moses. I like to use the Moses analogy or metaphor, right? Moses had to describe the land of milk and honey where the Israelites were going. He couldn't go there himself, as we all know from the Bible, but he had to describe and paint a picture of where we're going to and why it's the land of milk and honey, and create this motivation for the Israelites to wander through the desert for 40 years. If only they had GPS, but they didn't. And so, I've actually taken a bus through the Sinai Desert, Matt. It is no picnic. It's a real desert, very mountainous desert. And so that's the vision. Landscaping is like trudging through the desert sometimes. It's hard work. You need a strong vision. You've got to paint that picture of where we're going and constantly put it out there to keep the motivation going. And that takes time. An owner has to spend a chunk of their day, chunk of their year, ongoingly figuring out their vision and updating their vision, and then communicating their vision. And I think part of the vision also includes what's the owner's role. I think the owner has to spend time saying, here's the company we're building. Here's going to be my role. And therefore, what I'm not doing, here's going to be your roles. And then invest time and money into that vision. And so this is the big blind spot. How much vision is required to build that destination company that's going to attract people? And then because you have a vision of growth, now you need to invest in the training and development of people. And so it's really full circle. And the best companies out there, you see them on social media and you meet them at the events where the owner has a super strong vision and it just oozes out. And you have to start there. The owner has to start there. And if the owner's weak or is just absentee, the leader has to create that vision. That vision always has to be there and be the oxygen, so to speak, in the room that's keeping everybody pumped up. Anything you want to add to that, Katie?
I think sometimes we fall short on explaining to people what, like, you might have it, but how do you explain it to your team members? And how do you start that early enough to, the onboarding process actually starts during the interview process. And so you've got to be able to communicate that all the way through so that people are bought in before they ever walk in the door.
Amen. And since we're throwing cards on the table, my card on top of that card is if your vision is clear, you're going to have a future org chart. And if you can have that in the interview process, that's going to really attract your achievement-minded employees. When they can see the empty boxes where they can get a promotion and a raise, right? They're going to love that. So Katie's 100% right on that. Matt, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I really like this. And I remember reading a book, Measure What Matters. It's all about building a goal and structure system. But they use a Super Bowl analogy that I found really relatable, where the owner of the football team is like okay, next year I want to win a Super Bowl and I want 90,000 fans in the stand at every game. That's our vision. That's our direction. So now the marketing team knows, okay, our goal, get 90,000 fans in the stand every game. And then the coach knows, okay, great, I got to go win us a Super Bowl. So then now the coach goes to his offense leader, okay, you got to win me this many games. And he goes to his defensive leader, you got to stop this many yards. And then the marketing team has their plan. And it just becomes very dialed in that at every level, everyone knows what they have to do to make that happen. And it all starts with that clear vision.
And I just say that we just read that book you mentioned internally in our company and used it to drive our strategic planning. And we've assigned it to all of our clients and all of our peer groups, over 100 clients. They're all reading that book you just mentioned. It's a great book.
Oh, we used it at LMN to build our entire OKR system.
Yeah.
And it does take a few years to get really dialed in, and you feel like you're struggling. So don't feel like you're a failure if you didn't get it rolled out right away. But once it gets dialed in, like, you can go to the lowest level employee and they know exactly how they're contributing to the company vision, and it's transparent and ownership, and it's just so powerful.
Measure What Matters is the book.
That's
Thank
it.
you. All right, next one, Matt. So another blind spot, we don't have the money, right? We don't have the money for training. We don't have the money to pay a couple extra dollars more for our employees. We don't have the money. Now, money is a very interesting issue. I'm always interested in people's relationship to money. There's a significant poverty mentality in our industry. I don't quite know where it comes from. I can guess. I think our industry is full of some very humble people. And so some of it could come from just a natural humility, but that's doesn't create a poverty mindset, but you you definitely see it. And I think most entrepreneurs in our industry have to sort of work through it to some level or not, and uh, recognize they've got this poverty mindset. It's all about investment versus expense. Somebody with a poverty mindset, they're just trying to save money. Save, 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 save. Uh, Landscaping is brutal. You do have to be very efficient. You have to be careful with costs. So it might come from there, but uh, not as deep as I've seen it. And that doesn't explain the entire poverty mindset. You definitely want to look at your employees as assets, right? Like a truck. You spend a lot. We spend a lot of money on our trucks and our equipment, uh, and our fuel and our oil and our mechanic shop and everything, and our fancy shops and our lifts and everything. And so we have to invest the same amount in our people. And I think the better entrepreneurs realize I can make money. Give me a great employee. I know how to get clients. I know how to make money. The better employees realize, even if they set a budget and the budget says we can only spend a certain amount of money this year, this month on X, they realize, no, 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 we could grow the budget 20% this year or 10% and 50% next year with these changes. So I think it don't live and die by the budget. I know this is going to sound like I'm probably going to regret saying this, but entrepreneurs um, have to be able to have this investment mindset to make these calls, as long as they're willing to be in the end accountable to the budget. But you have to be willing to make these calls to really grow your business dynamically. And so you we have the money. Money is a magical thing. It's kind of a concept, really. Yes, there's physical money, but when you realize that, when you focus on the client and you focus on what you do well, and you know how to match the two up in a unique manner, you can create value. And with that value, money's created. And so get good at that, and you'll learn how to build and create the money, invest that money back into your team, into your people, into your training. And so there's a few sort of blind spots or baggages that have to be overcome here. Katie, you want to add to that?
Absolutely. No, I think we've covered that one. I do think there was one last blind spot that we wanted to make sure we touch on in this one, and I think it's an important one. Matt, if you can change that slide up for us. The next concept kind of rolls into that. Sometimes in the saving of money, we think, you know what, we'll just take our best technician and they'll train everybody. And those our best technicians are often amazing at what they do, but not as amazing at being the trainer, being the person to develop. And they don't always understand or have never been told that, you know, some of the basic principles of adult learning, that we all learn different ways and we have to learn in our own way to really be effective and efficient at it. And so we take our best technician and we say, go out and train. And then either we're frustrated or the new hires are frustrated when that experience isn't getting them where they need to be. And so one of the blind spots in that investment is investing in the people that you're asking to do the training, recognizing who the right people are, and then teaching them to be great coaches, not just great technical trainers. There's a skill set to go with that. And also leveraging other tools when there's better ways for people to learn than just the person who's been doing the job all along trying to be the teacher in that space. And so there's a lot of tools out there that, like Greenius, right, that can help give you the technical knowledge. And then this is about coaching and developing on the job, and how do you approach that piece of it. And I think that's one of the pieces that often our folks run into struggles with when they're just not thinking about investing money on the onboarding and training side of the house.
Let me give an example, a concrete example. If you're going to train your people on the job and you are serious about it, you're actually going to put a different cost code when that training is happening. And if you only make the training happen on the client's dime, something's going to give, either the quality or you're not really going to do the training. A client of mine, Derek Wells, who now actually works with us on our team, he gave a talk at our Summer Growth Summit last year. Probably the best talk out of all the talks. And he talked about how something happened where he realized he had let the wrong people on the bus, and he fired half of his production staff when they wouldn't show up for a snow event. And so then he talked about how he had to reorganize everything in his business, including always be interviewing and recruiting, and and then he had to train all these people in the spring. And he's like, okay, we're going to have to put specific monies onto the jobs to do that training. And it's a virtuous circle. He was forced into it. He's a smart guy. He's a visionary. He made the right steps, and uh, and he grew tremendously. He grew through that problem, and his next year was more profitable and higher revenue than the year before, because he put all the things in place to make up for firing half of his production staff.
That's really key. And we come across a lot of contractors where their turnover is around 40%, give or take. Some are lower, some are higher, but around that 40% mark. But using that metric means within 3 years, you're going to have an entirely new workforce. So if you don't have a system in place that's beyond one person, a full-on system, whether it's Greenius or not, but a standard operating procedures, you're going to end up with huge skills gaps pretty quick.
Amen.
So obviously, there's all these things that we know we have to overcome in terms of the day-to-day that get in the way of really having a great people development process in place. But you can't just sit down during the onboarding process and say, we care about, about developing people. You actually have to have the right tools in place to be able to walk the walk. And that's super important along the way. And it takes a little bit more structure. A couple of the things that are most important, first of all, most importantly, is having structured growth plans. Matt will actually show an example of this on a couple of slides, but we have to put it, Jeffrey mentioned earlier, you have to put it on paper. It needs to be clear to people, how do I move from point A to point B? And not just, a lot of times we'll see it's just the boxes and the here's how much more money you can make, and here's the skill you need to learn this new piece of equipment to move along. But true growth plans allow people to escalate, elevate even beyond just the crew level positions. How do they professionally grow the competencies and skills to do higher level roles within these organizations? One of the things we're seeing, right? Landscape companies are growing, and everybody, I laugh every time we're working with one of Jeffrey's clients. They're like, I'm trying to do things more sophisticated. I need more numbers. I need more analysis. Well, the market of folks that know landscaping and know how to do those kinds of things is small. And so you have to start thinking about not only how do you go out and buy talent from other places, but how do you build it within, and how do you make sure you have structured plans to make that happen? And it needs to be in writing, and you need to have, we tell people all the time, get away from the old performance evaluation process and think about this instead in terms of individual development plans. The second piece to this is, protecting development time. The number of times that I hear from folks, we talk about, right, how are you onboarding somebody? What does that look like? They're like, Katie, we're in the height of the season, so we can't onboard. We'll get to October, and then I'll teach them everything they need to know. Or all of the calls for, hey, I need to do some development on my people. Can we make it all happen between October and March? Part of the reason that the industry is seasonal is because everybody stops doing these things in the summer, and then you can't develop people again until the winter. And so you truly do have to block development time and recognize that you are always going to have seasonality to your business. But the more you are training people, the investment I take in time today to develop you means tomorrow you're more productive, you're more efficient, you're set up for success. And so oftentimes I have a client that we sort of use this all the time, is sometimes you have to slow down in order to go fast. And that means you have to take time during the season to make this happen. The next piece of this.
Sorry, I just want to
sorry,
quickly hop in here and share a story from one of the contractors we work with.
Yeah.
What they do is they have skill Saturdays. So they run a survey throughout their company, and they say, hey, what's one skill you would like to learn? And they send this survey out to the company, and then say what comes back is stone saw. And so this Saturday is going to be stone saw training. It's open to the whole company. You're paid if you show up for the training. It is optional. Breakfast is provided. They open it up to other landscapers in the area. So they'll send it out and say, you just got to cover their meals, but they can come get stone saw training. And then somebody on a maintenance crew has an opportunity to learn how to use a stone saw, and they have this whole skills clinic, and they protect that development time. So every Saturday they have skills Saturday, and it's been really successful for them.
That's great. That's a great example. What a wonderful time to make this an important piece. And again, sometimes it doesn't have to be 3 or 4 hours, chunks of time, right? What people can learn in even a short period of time is important, but you have to stick to whatever you do. So if you say we're going to do, every Saturday, or we're going to do an hour every 3 weeks, it sometimes, from a mental perspective of how your employees feel about what you do, is how consistent you are with doing it. So do I say, oh, we're going to do it every Tuesday, but then if it rains on Tuesday, this is the first thing, then we throw this plan out the window. Or if it rained on Monday, oh, never mind, we forget it. When you start doing things like that, people start feeling like you're not really walking the talk, and you're getting yourself, you just undermine your own philosophies in this space.
I like that. Just commit to it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So people first, walking the talk, dedicated mentorship. I'm speaking about this right now, because at our summer growth summit that we have every summer, this summer we're holding it at Shill Grounds Management, and Shill Grounds Management bought TLC, which is where Matt used to work, with the founders of Greenius when they created Greenius. And Dave Left, the person that Matt mentioned, is speaking at our Summer Growth Summit. And his talk is on this slide here. He was a dedicated mentor before anybody really thought about it. In fact, he's a member of my peer group back when he co-owned his own business before they sold it. And he was a member, this is going back 10 years or more. And he would tell us about his dedicated mentorship. And I'm telling you, the peer group thought, Dave, okay, you're a little bit nuts. Maybe it's because you're Canadian. We don't know. We're impressed. We don't have time to do that dedicated mentorship. And maybe you're going a little overboard. I mean, nobody said that, and I'm exaggerating, but he was definitely ahead of his time. And his talk is going to be on how he has built up such a powerful team that stayed in his company. Again, recruiting and development and turnover. So the way he uh, that dampened attrition and turnover and created tenure and created a powerful leadership team was by building these one-on-one relationships with all his direct reports and helping them out professionally and personally, as it says in here. And he also created a vision for his employees where he thought they could go. Remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and self-actualization was at the top of that pyramid. And so he really focused on the self-actualization in their careers, if you will, of all his direct reports. This works. It takes time. Now, Dave naturally cares. If you're an owner listening and you don't naturally care, you better get somebody who does on your team or somebody's. And it can't just be HR, right? You can't say, well, we're hiring an HR person and they'll bring all the touchy feely and we'll just go about our jobs. No, you really need a leadership team that leads. These are key leadership traits here, walking the talk. And I think we're going to get into this with uh, Matt, what you're going to show us and how Greenius helps you do this. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this, or are we going to cover this later on?
Well, I know Dave really well, and you're right. He truly cares. And I won't get into details, but the personal help and mentoring he's given his employees, it would just shock you the stuff TLC did for employees to really help them through tough times. And
Yeah,
they have multiple employees with 20 years plus tenure at the company, and
yeah.
crew leader that have been there. I believe he's been there 20 years. So it's
Yeah.
incredible the loyalty that this generates.
Mm.
Along those lines, it's one thing, like, you need to have a dedicated mentorship program and really believe in it, but you also need to, again, back to giving people those right skills. I think that's a critical component. And you have to teach folks how to like how to not just show up and be a manager every day, but truly be a coach. And what does that mean? And right, even as Jeffrey was talking about mentoring somebody isn't about I show up and I tell you what to do and then you go do that. Mentorship is about asking the right questions and getting the person to come to the answers on their own, right? Those are the people in our lives that we really think of as mentors. They rarely actually gave us the answer. They typically asked us the question that unlocked our brain and allowed us to get where we needed to go. And so teaching the individuals who are going to be in these training and mentoring roles how to be a coach and making sure that they understand some of those key philosophies, like how do I build trust with people? And how do I accelerate the rate with which people may trust me so that they'll lean into the coaching conversation? How do you listen to learn as opposed to listen to tell somebody the answer and listen to respond to questions? And most importantly, and this one is the hardest one for so many of us, how do we ask great questions to help the person unlock their own mind and their own set of answers? And I think that's a critical component. If I'm in the habit and I fall into this like everybody else, you're in a hurry, somebody asks you a question, we all grew up with teachers who, when we said, how do you spell X? And they said, look it up in the dictionary. And guess what we did? And sooner or later, we figured it out that that was how we were supposed to learn to spell things. Same thing goes in this case. When people ask us questions, maybe we don't always just spout the answer back. Instead, we stop and ask questions like, tell me what you're thinking you want to do. What have you already considered? What resources have you looked at? And where do you feel like you're stuck? Now you're coaching somebody to start understanding the decision tree yourself. And that gets back to that skills gap on the training side and can really get people to start to unlock the power of their own decision making.
I really like that. And I get the impression that's a good starting point to unlocking a growth mentality as well. It's challenging them to think about how I can do better. That's awesome.
We do real quickly before we dive in, Jeffrey, I'd love to, George put in something in the Q&A that I think relates nicely to what you're talking about. So regarding the mentorship, what level of involvement should an owner or president have with new landscapers as they come in?
Well, it depends how big your company is, but let's assume you're not larger than 200 employees. I think you should meet in all of them, but I don't think you should be the one onboarding them. You should just be a welcoming face and presence. Again, George, if you can tell us your size, then we could share more. But I mean, I've met really large companies where the owner's like, yeah, I show up and I shake every new employee's hands and welcome them to the team. So there you go. Even in really large companies, that still happens. I do think you have to have trust in your direct reports, and are they doing everything else we're talking about here? You've got 10 field staff. Oh yeah. Well, your so I know what your issue is. If you have a lot of turnover, then you feel like I've invested the time and the bozo just left in 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. So you need a way to vet them early on are that they do align with your values and they are worth investing. And I would suggest a probationary period, whether they know about it or not, but where your team is like figuring out early on, are they going to commit to our very, very difficult industry of the green industry? And I think even your foreman that they're working under can be part of, here's the 20 criteria we need them to achieve to know that they're going to make it. One of my uh, friends in the industry once, he told me that at the end of the interview and of the onboarding, they'll hold up $100 and they'll say, hey, if this isn't for you, just take this $100 and leave and let us know now. I thought that was clever, right? Why go through 2 weeks of working with the person if they actually grab that $100 and leaves? So once you have a modicum of confidence that they're going to stick at your size company, your vision is what's going to keep them and everyone in your company growing and sticking to the business.
You can also do this in a graduated way. So maybe in week one, you stop by and have a quick cup of coffee with them, right? You're not spending hours and hours on that mentorship, but at least you stop by, you shook their hand, you said hello. They know you cared and they know you were there. And then maybe every couple of weeks, anybody who's in their first 30 days sits down and they get an hour with you as the owner, and you're the one talking about your values and the vision for the company, and so they're hearing it. There's also, in the world of automation, there's a lot of options around, do you even just video something that they can see during the onboarding plan that's you giving life to your vision so that they're
Yeah.
hearing it, and then by the end of the week, now they meet you and you shake their hand and you have a quick cup of coffee with them, and they're like, oh, well, that, like, it ties it all together. So sometimes it's about how you get really smart about how you're using your time as the owner, but the personal connection will make a huge difference in your turnover.
Can I add to that, Katie? So your values, your company mission, the purpose, uh, and your vision, I think those should all be on videos that the whole world can see, but is also part of the onboarding. I 100% agree with that. And now, George, you have a few direct reports. Those direct reports, twice a month, every other week, sitting down with them personally and professionally and how they're doing on their goals, their KPIs, also their personal life. And then you can model that behavior, and then your direct reports can learn how to do that with their people. And that's how you can really spread, cascade the value and skills that you bring throughout your company.
Fantastic. I want to bring us back to some of the practical tips, Matt, that we've put in here for people to think about in their career map. Like, how do you get to these sort of development plans? The next couple of slides are samples of career mapping that you can start to think about. And you really do want to think about what are the roles and opportunities for people going forward. And then again, put it down on paper. It's going to look a little different for every company, but at a high level, what's the purpose behind this role? Why does it exist? And the more you can clarify this both on the field side and on the office staff side, the better. Then we need to dive a little bit deeper and put even more detail behind it. So again, this is your sort of 10,000 foot view. If we go to our next slide, we start to dive a little bit deeper on now you have to put detail behind the roles. And oftentimes when we talk about roles, we know this is what the crew member does. That's like everybody understands that. Well, we might all think we understand the same thing, but we likely don't. And so what we suggest doing here is thinking about what are the top 5 priorities for every single role, and get really clear with people in their pathways, because I might have a different vision for what I think a crew leader is supposed to do. And if it doesn't match, then I don't really understand why I'm not getting promoted. And in addition to the top 5 priorities, we actually recommend giving people directional ideas on how much of your time should you be spend doing those particular things. Now, I know sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, people would count their hours. This isn't about counting hours. This is about looking at the roles to say, wait a minute, if I need somebody who is spending 20% of their time leading, coaching, and developing people, that's a different foreman, right, than the person who really is spending a huge portion of their time on site, only like making sure that the work gets done. So it starts to help you think about what are the skill sets you actually need for somebody to be effective in the role, which is what is going to drive your career ladders as you go along. And so these percentages just help you wrap your head around it, but it also helps an employee wrap their head around it as well.
Okay. And so I'm going to overlay to Katie's perfect way of talking about responsibilities. In my book, one of the concepts is the 3 R's: role, responsibility, results. Some people have different roles. They need a different set of responsibilities and results for those different roles. If you can outline the results, the KPIs, the metrics for the responsibilities, then everybody has clarity. Like, it's important to have these responsibilities laid out, but really, to what end, right? We can both look at at a statement, and we can have different conclusions. But if you can lay out the results, so a foreman, I'm looking at the top one here, organizes multiple crews. What are the results? We're going to measure it by measuring the job budgets, and maybe by measuring overtime. They lead, coach, and develop direct reports. And so we're going to measure that by minimal call outs and the career ladder development of their employees. Number 3, conducts quality assurance, safety oversight. So we're going to measure it by 0 days lost at work, minimal warranty and rework, whatever the standards are, and then some client NPS and quality scores. Trains new team members is number 4. And so there could be an internal onboarding score. Remember I said to George that you could have your foreman sort of grade how well a new employee's doing during their probationary time? It could be that score there. Serves as point of contact for clients. And so what are the key results? Clients pay on time. That's what I would want. 5-star Google reviews, right? And a certain amount of upsells. So these are examples of results that definitely fit with the foreman responsibilities. Figure out the results, and then everything gets easier. The check-ins biweekly, the reviews that you're going to have when it comes time to give pay raises. There's going to be clarity about what they've achieved and haven't achieved. If you're firing somebody, you're going to have data. If you're promoting somebody, you're going to have data. And so, you need a full job description for all kinds of reasons: CYA and clarity and recruiting, and just full descriptions. But making this as a summary on the job description really brings focus. and will likely help with retention. I want to say when you go through that process. Katie.
Absolutely, absolutely. This particular slide, again, is just an example, but it's an important piece. So we've talked about what the role is going to be. And we all know, right, each role probably has certain skills they need from a technical perspective. I think the part that's important to keep in mind when you're really investing in training and developing somebody so that they stay with you, you're not just teaching them the what they do, you're also talking about the how they do it. And that's where competencies can come into place, right? What are the behaviors while I'm doing the work you need me to do? What are the behaviors that I exhibit that make me successful and, more importantly, help me get to that next level? And so defining those behaviors, because something like accountability, probably important for everybody in your organization, but it looks different if you're the crew member versus if you're the division manager, and helping people understand that and explain that is a really big part. So these are tools that help you think about, what does this look like when your crew member shows accountability, and what does it look like when the division manager has it? That way you're teaching them along the way through these onboarding and mentoring programs what your expectations are. And I think the more clarity you can give people on expectations and then invest in their development and be really transparent with them, they're going to stay around a lot longer. Ultimately, right, this all comes down to, how do you invest in your people? Not only their growth, but their growth is going to fuel your growth. We can go out and buy a whole bunch of talent from the market, but it's an expensive way to do it versus building that talent internally, to make sure that you keep the people you've already invested in and help them grow, which these career paths make a huge difference, because now I can see it. Otherwise, I see you only have 8 people. There's nowhere for the number of times in interviews somebody says to us, like, well, I'm leaving because there's nowhere for me to grow. And what they don't know is somebody's already thought about the job they want them to have a year from now. It definitely makes a difference in performance. And this is that concept of slow down to go fast. If I'm not developing you, then I'm basically saying, like, run wild for a few months, and then afterwards I'll tell you all the things you did wrong. Well, no human being likes to operate that way. And so if I slow down to teach you, now when you jump into the pool and you feel confident and you know what you're doing, so you'll be more successful. And then the most important piece is just, it builds a culture. When people know you care about them, they will give back tenfold. And the most important way you can show somebody that you care about them is to spend time investing in their growth, their knowledge, and making that personal connection as a coach. And so you've got to have plans for people to do that. You have to have the right people in the right seats helping make that happen.
Yeah, I agree that 100%. So I just reminding everybody, we're getting close to time here. This is being recorded, so it'll be emailed to your inbox. So if you do have a commitment at 3 and you have to hop off right away, you can watch the recording in your inbox and catch up on anything we miss. We will go over a little bit. I have the extra time here. So, but I think we've already covered a lot of what I was going to say. So I'm going to kind of streamline it and see if we can land on time. Let's go.
Let's skip a couple of these. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, I just want to talk about quickly, there's a difference between onboarding and training. Now, training, you're just going to identify a skills gap, and you identified it either through poor efficiency, damaged equipment, damaged customer property, and employee injury. You flagged a skills gap, and now you're going to assign training to go fix that. Whereas onboarding is a process. You're opening up your arms, you're welcoming the employee to your company, you're trying to connect them to your company, you're trying to show them your expectations at your company, the vision, get them bought into the vision, their role in that vision, their tasks associated with that. So just know that onboarding is really a process, and then training is a specific task to tackle skills gaps. And I don't know if Katie or Jeffrey, you want to add anything to that point here?
No, just that I've heard people say, "Oh yeah, we do training," and what they meant is they do onboarding, and it's the training stops at the onboarding. So at least they're doing onboarding partially, but they're not really doing the training or ongoing training and development.
Yeah. So just call that out, that you really got your onboarding, your training, and your career development pathway. And some are process and some are specific tasks. And there's just a clear distinction there. I'll go through this really quick. This is a 90-day program we built with a $25 million company, and they rolled this program out. They saw a reduction of about 20% in their employee turnover, but really it just ties in everything we've talked about today about connecting to the employee, giving them a process, stating the vision. And where we start here is really we start at the very beginning. We give them clear instructions on what their first day of training is going to look like. The expectation in the morning, you'll do your HR stuff. Drivers will go do their driver training. Non-drivers will go to lunch. In the afternoon, we switch to your role-specific training. So maintenance will go do their maintenance training, enhancements, design, build will go do their specific. And in Greenius, we have role-based learning paths, which is a full video and exam. They go watch that on devices at the shop, whether it be iPads or computers. They just go execute and learn that training. And that ends their first day. So their first day was really a lot of video training, paperwork, and then just preparing for that first day in the field. So now they show up on their first day, and they got to go through those field checklists with their crew leader. So now each crew leader would open up the Greenius app and go through specific tasks that the employee has to demonstrate. So they actually have the equipment in their hand. They're actually fueling it, putting on their PPE, and operating it. But as you go through these checklists, it's not about right or wrong, but ensuring they're doing the training. So you're just checking those boxes. And why we do it this way is adults really like to learn in three ways. They like to watch a video, they like to read about it, or they like to do it hands-on. And that's what this encompasses, is we hit all three of those and help ensure that they're just getting the skills they need to be safe. And they're not going to be an expert at day one. They're not going to be your best mower operator, but they're going to work safely. They're going to work efficiently, and they're also going to reduce the risk of equipment damage. So they're starting to put out those future fires that drive crew leaders insane. Then here are those role-based. So here we would assign that health and safety basics. That's what you're going to do in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we would assign your role-specific path. So if you're going to be on the hardscape team, we would assign technician hardscape essentials, and you're going to go through understanding hardscapes, measurements, how to use a tape measure properly, site preparation, laying slab. You'll go through hand tools, plate compactor, stone saw, engines of fuel basics to get a really solid foundation about working with hardscapes. Then on day two, like I said, you go do those field checklists, you get signed off on that equipment. Fast forward to day 30, we do a performance review, and we've kind of streamlined that in Greenius, where it's just an app on the phone, and every assigned course has a review slider, and you just score that employee on 0 to 10. And now you're just setting a baseline to see how their first 30 days are going. And you're going to use that to measure at 60 and 90 to see, is our onboarding working? Is there any areas we can improve on? And it's also just forcing the crew leader to stop for a second and have a conversation with the new hire, because quite often they're very busy. They got tickets and schedules they got to get done every week, and they're driven on getting their work done, that they miss these check-ins with the new employees. So that new employee could be doing something that's frustrating that crew leader. And instead of letting it go on for 6 months, they just force that conversation to just check in with that employee and work it out on the spot. And it just leads to a better outcome, more comfortable for everybody, and just more acceptance of the new hire. So we do that 60, 90 day, that 90 days, an exit performance review. These only take about 5 minutes in Greenius. You see their previous score in the slider right away, so you don't even have to look up what you scored them on before. We get that done, and then we send them on to a career path now. So it's really important to check in with the employee and ask them, what do you want here? What are your personal goals? What would you like to do at this company? And you might be shocked. You might have a new hire on maintenance that maybe wants to be a carpenter on design build someday. And it's like, okay, great. here's a plan to get you there. It might take 2 years. You got to do this training. You got to go to these skills clinics, but we will help you get there. And this becomes extremely sticky in retention because this employee is now working towards a goal. They have certain benchmarks they got to hit, and they're always working towards a future at your company. So they see a future there and they just become really sticky. And so this company rolled this program out and they have seen now a 20% reduction in turnover, to the point where they're not hiring very often because employees are now staying with them longer. Go ahead. Nope.
Are you talking to?
I just wanted to share lowering turnover. So Justin White from KD Landscaping, you might know the name. They've lowered their turnover to the low teens from 50%. And the biggest thing they did was his brother invested in really creating an employee development program at their company. And it was all based around career paths. And when they got really good at that, and then they used Greenius to execute, they've got their turnover to some of the best I've seen in the landscape industry. And that was the one key they did to unlock that, was giving these career paths to the employees.
We talk about a quick obstacle to that, or a mental obstacle, and that maybe a physical obstacle. Land Design in St. Louis was our host for our Summer Growth Summit a couple of years back. And they take their career path and they publish it on the wall really big, like big, where you can see the pay range and what's required in general. Really what you have here, it's public knowledge. And some people are like, well, I've told everybody they can't share their pay, but they all do, right, behind your back. So pay is already being shared. Or you may have an issue of, well, we pay so and so twice as much because he gets 3 times the amount of work done. Okay, there's going to be exceptions, but you have to be willing to reduce. You may not remove all exceptions, but reduce exceptions. And it is possible, and get people into this framework. And they already talk about it amongst each other. And so put it out there and make it a driving topic of discussion. So I think what you have here, Matt, is in your system. And these career ladders are not that difficult. They really aren't that difficult. Two smart people could sit down for an hour and a half and maybe go back and look at it for another hour, and you could map it out. And you don't have to make it perfect in year one. And I think, Matt, your software really helps speed that up greatly. But
Sure.
it doesn't have to start out perfect. We just have to get the it's like a dream board. We just need the dream board out there so we know what direction and we're going and why we're going there.
And what Justin was seeing at his company was an employee would come in and be like, hey, I want a raise. And he's like, okay, why should I give you a raise? Why do you deserve a raise? And he's like, well, my rent went up, bread's more
Yeah.
expensive, and
Right.
because of that, I deserve more money. And now they say, okay, you want more money? Well, here's a career path. Go do this, and then we can give you more money. And it gives it the responsibility back to the worker and gives them a goal. Okay, you want more money? Here's how you go get it.
Mm. There you go.
And then I'm going to skip through this. We covered a lot of this. I really want to get to the last few things here, I think is really of value to people. Jeffrey, if you want to explain the QR code for your book here.
So this is a QR code. You can download a free copy of my book. If you like paper copies, on a link, it will show you how to go buy a paper copy. Very cheap. We're not making any money on this. We want to get the book out to as many people as possible. And I've had people call me up and order 10 books, 15 books. It's an easy read. It's short. I wrote it for the busy contractor. Trust me, it's about that thick. So can you throw a link into the chat for people as well so they can ponder it before you move on? I think Lisa was going to do that.
Yeah, I think our team will put that in the chat there. And
Okay.
what I want to call out is I hear this a lot where I talk to a lot of contractors. They're like, Matt, we get it. We need to be doing training. We're sold. We get it. How do we get started? And I feel like this book is like your roadmap to get started. So I would encourage people to really, if you're looking on a starting point, start here.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then the Growth Summit's coming up. So we're sponsoring it. I'll actually be speaking here too as well. And it's coming up. Jeffrey, if you want to tell people what they could expect when they're there.
Well, we did put on a $200 discount. Thank you for somebody on your team even suggesting it. I'm like, oh yeah, good idea. So $200 discount per ticket. This is almost a 3-day event. Basically, the Summer Growth Summit's 2 days, and then we tack on a pre-event where we'll be speaking. Dave Leff, the famous Dave Leff, will be speaking, and Jerry Schill will be speaking, and really sort of a pre-event with some great information on how to grow your company, whether you're small or large, commercial or residential. Day 2, we do a full day facility tour of Schill Grounds Management. We visit 2 branches. These guys have it dialed in. You don't get to be this big just by magic. It looks like magic, right? Oh, they bought those companies. Somebody threw money at them. Things always look like magic until you look, under the sheets and you realize, ooh, they have some really great systems, and we'll be sharing those systems so you can rob and duplicate them. And then day 3, which is a 2/3 day, so you can fly home that day, we're going to meet their leadership team and hear sort of the high level. So you're going to hear managers speak from their company and sort of executives. Plus, I'll be speaking, and then we'll end up, and there'll be a few more speakers as well, besides Chill. And we're going to end up with me and Jerry Shield doing a 1-hour Q&A. So you're going to get both massive inspiration. You're going to get a lot of systems you can rob and duplicate, and you're going to network with everybody in our community and a lot of outside people that come to this as well. And Matt, you know what we do? We sit people down by their position. So when you come, let's say you're a controller, you get to sit with other controllers and network with them. And so when you leave, you're going to have traded business cards and have a network that will last for a lifetime. And so we make sure that even when you're sitting down, you're at a table with like-minded people that will, no matter what position you have, whether you're owner, sales, etc., you're going to really enjoy the networking and the in-between moments as well as the education.
Connection. It's so important. And I feel like huge opportunity for connection in the landscape industry. It's one industry I've been in where the willingness to share, it's incredible. Like you have owners that'll just tell you everything they did to get successful. It's incredible to be a part of.
I agree.
And then I also wanted to call out, if you're interested in learning about Greenius and you want to have your team just sit at a demo with our team, we'll buy you lunch for everybody that attends. So if you have 10 people that want to show up and learn about Greenius over lunch, we'll send you a gift card for Uber Eats or DoorDash to go buy lunch for that team. And we'll quickly walk you through Greenius and really go a lot deeper on how you can build these employee development and career development programs, onboarding programs, and really unlock the benefits that a lot of our contractors are really enjoying. And we probably have around 13 to 1400 contractors now on our platform, and Shill is one of our customers as well, and they're using it across all their locations. So hopefully we can talk Greenius at Shill when we're there too.
Excellent.
That's great.
And we also have Element Academy certification program coming up. And this is a 3-day intensive that's going to be role-based training to really learn the Element platform and how to execute it and roll it out through your company to really drive the adoption, get the benefits. And it is, again, role-based focus. So when people show up, similar to Jeffrey, we're going to put you in your right role and train you specifically on the value to your role, because owners have different than a crew leader, right? So we're really diving into that role specific training there. And that's a 3-day, it's going across the US. So there'll probably be a location close to you. Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I guess landed just a little late today, but I think the information was insanely valuable. So again, Katie and Jeffrey, I personally appreciate all your insights. I've learned actually a few things today that I'm going to take with me to continue make Greenius better. So
Well,
personally,
what was your biggest takeaway, Matt?
first of all, I got to read Destination Company because it looks like
Again,
you've been doing concepts that are way ahead of everybody else. So I'm really excited to dive in there.
cool. Excellent. Okay, you're getting thumbs up here that are flying
I was
above the
going to
screen.
say.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Let's
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.